Alrighty, hey gang, welcome back you guys. Another Bro Audio video. It's been a long time. I'm sorry about that, you guys. I have been just slammed with my day job, building boats. It's not as much fun as building stoves. But so I've been just dying to get back here. I've got a bunch of stuff to share with you guys in the coming months here, and really looking forward to spending some time showing you guys some of the stuff I've been working on. But in the meantime, let's just get caught up here at on Stove Chat. So yeah, so this is gonna be Stove Chat number 4, and I just wanted to go over some of the stuff that we've been talking about over the past few years. I haven't, like I said, had time to get caught back up with you guys, and here we are. It's almost March, and geez, I've been burning all winter, and got some stuff to share. So hope you guys are doing good. Hope you guys are staying warm and all that. And yeah, let's chat. So mostly today I want to talk about materials, you guys. I've had, it's been, I think, almost a year since I did my last stove chat. Well, it was the end of last season. And at that time I was experimenting with my RA330, the rolled alloys, high temperature alloy that I've been using for my secondary air and for a firebox liner inside the firebox. And I wanted to give you guys an update on that, and that update is very positive. So I'm super excited. The secondary air tube is showing 0 deterioration. It's been in there for just about a year now. I've been burning hard daily all season this year, and it is not warped. It hasn't spalled. It doesn't seem to be changing shape or size or anything. So it looks like, knock on wood, looks like we've got a permanent fix for, or permanent material to use for the secondary air part. So I'm really excited about that. So that is a product from Rolled Alloys. You can find it at rolledalloys.com. And they do sell, they're really great. They'll sell you, the 6-inch section of 2-inch pipe if you need it, or whatever you need. So I was actually able to order my firebox sides and top and bottom in the right sizes, and then I just tack welded them together. Really convenient. So that's rolledalloys.com. That product is RA330, and that is metal that will last inside a rocket stove. So metal is no longer doomed. So that's really exciting news. I'm really happy to share that. You can use it anywhere in the combustion zones. It does warp a little bit in its thinner configurations. My firebox sides and top, my liner, it's just, I think it's 18 gauge, so pretty thin. Might be a little bit thicker than that, actually. Now I'm thinking about it, I think it might be 16 gauge. Anyways, it's pretty thin, and it is warping, but it doesn't seem to be spalling. It doesn't seem to be going away. I've taken it out of there once and hammered it back to shape, and it held shape pretty good. It warped a lot initially, and then it sort of stabilized. But the thicker pipe is not warping or changing shape, and it's holding up great. So I'm really excited about that. So the next thing I want to talk about is core materials. Over the years, I've been, well, all of us really, have been experimenting with various ways of building these rocket stove combustion cores. And as you guys know, I've been down quite a few roads with that, and I finally, really have come to a conclusion that I found what I like, and that is I've settled on the ceramic fiberboard. I like it because it's easy to work with. You can just cut it with a knife or, a oscillating tool or something like that. It cuts very easily. It's really easy to achieve sort of complex shapes and builds in a core. It doesn't change shape or size much with temperature. It cures initially. It does change shape quite a bit then in that initial cure. But then once it's cured, it stabilizes. So it's really easy to throw together cores, experiment with, build quickly and easily. I love it for those reasons, but I also love it for performance. It keeps all the heat of combustion focused on the fuel, allowing quicker startups and higher temperature burns for cleaner combustion and more efficient performance. Because it's so lightweight and so insulative, it really, really, really enhances those aspects of the rocket stove. So it really plays to the strengths of the rocket stove. Now, the one downside that we talk about, it is not very durable to abrasion resistance. So While I'm okay using it just bare in a firebox, and I just consider it a wear part, I'm going to replace those cheeks in the firebox every year perhaps. It's so easy to do, I don't think that's too much of a downside. However, some people, you know, obviously prefer lower maintenance builds, so I have a couple solutions to that. One is my RA330, my metal firebox liner that I just simply build a mailbox, and I line that ceramic fiberboard firebox with that steel. That takes care of the abrasion issue, but leaves it really well insulated, and it still performs at a very high rate. Now, one of the other things I really like about that CFB for a firebox is that it doesn't store the heat in the sides of the firebox, which can be a real problem if you're doing multiple burns in a Firebrick box, because you'll load wood in there, and the heat from the sides, from the bricks, will just instantly ignite all that wood, and you'll get what I call an overfuel situation, where there's too much wood gas in the combustion chamber at one point, and it cannot consume it all, so you get a lot of smoke out the chimney and an inefficient burn. So that's another reason I prefer the CFB firebox. But I want to go back to that because there are other reasons to use other materials. So as you guys may have noticed, I built my brick oven this summer. I used an all heavy Firebrick split firebox, and actually I built the whole core out of that. Now that was an attempt to offer people a build that can be built in places where the ceramic fiberboard isn't available, or perhaps it's too expensive, or perhaps it just doesn't suit your goals. Maybe you really don't care as much about quick startup and ultimate efficiency, but really what you want is longevity, ease of use, and a real just tank of a build. And so building that brick oven, I learned that those Firebrick splits, they do an adequate job of a core. It takes a lot longer to heat up. Now, if you had burned one of these and then you burn the Firebrick core, you're going to be instantly aware of the performance difference. So on the pro side for the ceramic fiberboard, it heats up extremely quickly, and that means it starts burning clean and hot very, very quickly. So your burn is much more clean, much more efficient. You get heat quicker, you get to cook quicker, all of those things. But the Firebricks heat up a lot slower. They come to clean combustion. It takes a long time, almost half an hour or something like that, depending on how you burn and how you start up. But it's always a compromise and a trade-off. And the other side of the Firebricks for a core is that they do heat up, and holding that heat can be a problem when you load the firebox. But at the flip side, you do get more mass in the firebox, and you do get sort of, once the whole thing is hot, you do get sort of this long, stable heat cycle that you can sort of operate in a little more relaxed manner than the ceramic fiberboard. And I don't mean that you're relaxed. I mean, it's pretty relaxing either way. But the ceramic fiberboard, you're going to feed, and then when it starts to cool off, it cools off rather quick. And it's not like you need to just keep stuffing wood in it, but every few hours you need to put in more wood if you're going to continue to burn. Now with the Firebrick firebox, you can extend that time. Now, again, it's trade-off. You're going to take a lot longer to heat up. So where this thing, I just put in one load of wood, it gets up to temp, and it burns it all off really cleanly and at high temperature. The Firebrick core might take a startup load and then another load before it really was all the way up to temp. So you may get more burn time on the back end, but you put more work in on the front end. So it's a compromise on both sides. But I did want to bring up that the Firebrick splits are an acceptable way to build a core, and they are fairly affordable. You don't save a bunch of money, to be honest, over the ceramic fiberboard, believe it or not. If you're going to buy both brand new at the store, you'll probably spend $150 on Firebrick splits for a core like this, and you'll probably spend $200 on ceramic fiberboard, or just a little more. So not a huge difference in cost, but availability can be a big difference. So there's that. Now another material I'd like to talk about is casting your cores. Now in the early days of my experimentation, I did a lot of casting, and I used a lot of different casting mixes. Now one of the things I was really gung-ho on early on was casting with backyard forge type mixes and aircrete type mixes, and really anything I could find out there on the internet that was supposedly high temperature refractory homemade mixes. Now most of those mixes you're going to find contain Portland cement. And I'm going to tell you right now that in my experience, and this goes back to 2012, you can find some of my old videos casting with some of those aircrete type mixes. You know, my experience is that you really don't want to use a Portland-based mix at all, anywhere in a combustion chamber or rocket stove. Now, those type of mixes are generally fine for the body of a stove and for downstream in the bench or the bell. But in the combustion core, anything with Portland in it will fail, and it will fail pretty quickly because it relies on water with it at the molecular level to bond those materials, that composite, and the heat cycles of the rocket core, the wide swings from cooling off to high temperature burns, they'll drive all that moisture out of that mix. And regardless of whether you know how you mixed it, if it's aircrete or a backyard forge mix or whatever, if you have Portland cement in there, it's going to fail. It will eventually just dry all the way out and turn to powder. So I want to really caution you. I've seen a lot of folks new to the rocket stove world inquiring about aircrete, inquiring about backyard foundry type mixes. I'm going to strongly caution you to avoid those. Casting takes a lot of work. There's a lot of prep work involved building your molds. There's a lot of messy work involved with the mixing. You know, you want to wear masks and because you're exposed to a lot of harmful dust. And you'll get it all done, and it's just a real bummer when you spend all that time and effort and energy and money and work and the thing ends up cracking to pieces. So I'm going to caution you. There's people out there telling you to try these things. Give them a few years. Watch their builds. See if they're burning every day. See how those builds hold up. I think you'll find that if you use Portland in a rocket stove core, you'll be disappointed before the first season is up, if you're really burning hard. Now, if it's just something to play with in the yard, knock yourself out. It'll probably be more than adequate for, you know, a handful of burns. But if you're building something for inside your house, you want it to last. Stay away from anything with Portland in it. Now, let's go back to casting real quick. Now, you can do castings that will hold up, and if you do make that choice and that's the way you'd like to go, I highly recommend you use a commercial castable refractory. You can find them, again, at industrial refractory suppliers. And in my early days of experimenting, I used to always think I knew better than the suppliers, and I would make them more insulative by adding perlite or, you know, foaming them with air. And what I found is that anytime you mess with their careful mix, you just end up with something that doesn't work. They end up very weak. They're very delicately balanced with regards to their mix, you know, strength to expansion ratios and all that. They have to handle those temps, the temp swings, and when you modify them, they just don't seem to work as well. So there's my material discussion. I really wanted to talk about cores. I wanted to talk about the CFB versus the Firebricks versus your own castings. I wanted to caution you guys against using Portland cement. And I think that pretty much covers it. So outside materials, you guys know I really like the bricks. You know, I've built a lot of cob stoves over the years. I've really settled on brick as what I think the cheapest and easiest way to stack up a stove. I like them a lot because they're relatively inexpensive. You can buy these clay brick at Home Depot for 44 cents a piece. They're very dense compared to cob. You know, a cob build of the exact same volume would probably, you know, have almost as little as half as much mass as the brick because the density is so much less. Now, of course, that depends on where you are and what your cob is made of, but cob tends to be relatively low density compared to these bricks, so you get a lot more weight and thermal mass in a build by just stacking up bricks, and they're just so easy. They do limit you in your shape a little bit. Cob's a lot of fun because you can do corners and curves and things like that. But the brick is very nice to just stack up. It's really simple. Now, for an outside finish, the brick leaves you a lot of options. I tend to love the brick finish, but it really makes it easy if you wanted to do a tile finish over the top. If you want to do a plaster over the top and make it look like a cob stove, you can certainly do that. metal skins. You know, there's a whole host of ways you can skin these to freshen up the appearance if there's something that you like that suits your style. So there's that. And one other thing I want to touch on is just the layouts of my cook stoves and some of the subtle differences. One of the biggest ones I want to talk about was really the vertical oven and firebox configuration, where I have the oven below the firebox in my tiny cook stove, as opposed to the side-by-side configurations like I have in the full cook stove and the continental cook stove. And you know, the biggest reason for the oven below the firebox is to save space. So this is the tiny cook stove. My goal was to build it in as small a footprint as I could. So I made a compromise and I put the oven below the firebox, and I just want to make sure that you understand that this is really a roasting oven. It's only going to get, it can reach 400 degrees, but you got to really push it. But it tends to ride in the mid to high 200s most of the time. That's degrees Fahrenheit. And for me, that's perfect for what I like to use the oven for, which is roasting rib roasts and briskets and, you know, low and slow type cooking. Often I'll put it in there with some flavorful wood like apple or maple in the firebox. I'll put it in there unwrapped and I'll let it smoke. I'll actually use this thing like a smoker. And by smoke, I don't mean this thing is blowing smoke, because we know it's not, but it just gives those same products of combustion, give the same flavor to the wood. I think it's really the lack of oxygen and the, you know, the combustion products really sort of toasting the meat, so you still get that nice pink smoke ring and you get the great flavor. Very little smoke comes out of the firebox, but it still does great. After a little while, I'll wrap that in foil and then stick it back in there and let it cook for hours. And that's how I like to cook, using the lower oven. So I just wanted to make sure that you understand the lower oven is not for baking. It's really a roasting oven. So if you would like a baking oven, it's important that you put the oven adjacent to the firebox, and then you can really adjust the temperature of your cook by where the food sits in that chamber. If it's up high, you can be 100 or 200 degrees warmer than down low. So just wanted to touch base on that real quick. And one other materials discussion, or two other quick things to cover. I just have had a couple customers send me some information I thought I'd pass along. One was that I had a customer purchase some Firebrick at Tractor Supply, and when he put them in his stove, they actually melted. He sent me photos. They looked like dripping plastic. I don't think they were plastic, but whatever Tractor Supply was selling as Firebrick, they certainly weren't. So I would encourage you to, if Tractor Supply is your supplier, bring home one and test it first. I think they have some different grades. I don't know what exactly he bought, but they certainly didn't look adequate for a rocket stove build. And last but not least, I've talked about super wool being available to be found salvaged in glass top cook stoves like I use for my cooktops. And I just wanted to update you on that. I've heard from somebody who had used a Maytag cook stove, and they had salvaged the insulation from inside of there, and the insulation melted in their riser. So it was not super wool or ceramic fiber. So again, just test your materials before you use them. If you're at all unsure, just put a torch on them. You'll know real quick if it's adequate for use in a rocket stove. So I still think salvage is a great way to go. I think salvaging materials from those cook stoves is a really great way to get a lot of useful stuff, and most of the insulation I've found has been adequate. So just double check and I think you'll be fine. So, all right, you guys, well, that's enough for now. I'm going to hopefully wrap up my day job contracts that I've got in the coming months. I've got a little bit more work to do, and then I'm hoping to come back and I've got a great new water heater design I want to share with you guys. So I've got that in the works right now, and hopefully I'll have a video up for you on that within the next few months. So, all right, you guys, well, hit me with your questions and comments, and as always, thank you so much for listening and watching, and for all of your kind comments and support. I really appreciate it. Hope you guys are staying warm out there, and I will check back in with you before too long. So, all right, you guys, take care. Thanks. See ya.